Speed is one of the most important elements in Rocket League, and it's also one of the most difficult elements to improve at. We have all heard people talk about how warming up in slow motion can help you play faster, but doing this has always made me feel really wild and out of control of my car in actual games. So I wanted to find another way. What I've come up with is training with a ball that moves faster. In doing this, you are forced to go for the ball as fast as you can. And then when you go into a regular game and the ball is moving slower, it is easier for you to attack the ball quickly. Starting rank for this challenge is right around 1500 MMR, or GC1 Div 3. We are going to experiment with this fastball idea for an entire week, and at the end of it, we'll see if this training allows us to play faster in Rocket League. Day 1 was all about feeling out this whole idea, to see if there was even anything to this. After all, if on your first day everything just falls apart, is there really any reason to continue? I wanted to keep things as simple as I could, so I loaded up a custom match with the fast ball and hopped on in. The plan was to treat this as a 20-minute free play session, hitting the ball around the field, trying to get as warm as possible, going for pretty much everything I would do in free play: dribbles, flicks, double taps, air dribbles, flip resets, etc. A couple of things that I noticed immediately: there was not a huge difference, from what I could tell, between the fast ball and the normal ball. The difference was definitely noticeable, but it was slight. The second thing I noticed was that 20 minutes seemed to be a great amount of time to feel good in my gameplay. In a past experiment when I used a small ball to warm up, I was only warming up for 15 minutes, but the extra 5 seemed to do me a lot of good. So after 20 minutes of warm-up, it was time for the moment of truth. Would this have any impact on my play in actual games? At least from initial impressions, the answer to this question is a resounding yes. We came out of the gates swinging in Game 1, and made several really good plays on the ball. It felt like I was able to attack the ball quickly and without hesitation, which, if warming up this way allows me to consistently not hesitate, this will be a major win, as that is often one of my biggest weaknesses. With this experiment as well, we will also be utilizing the fastball as our free play time between games. So in between each game, we will hop back in with the fastball for about a minute or so, just to keep that feeling fresh, and I am very glad I did, as the rest of the ranked session went better than I ever could have expected. One of the things that I definitely felt was a confidence in my own abilities. So you add confidence to a lack of hesitation and mix in the fact that I was reading the game quite well, and you have a very dangerous combination on the field. To keep things consistent, every day I will play a best of 9 in ranked, so I will either win 5 games or lose 5 games and then stop. Doing this will give us a good comparison point from day to day, as if on one day you play 9 games and on another you play 15, there is a lot that can happen in those extra 6 games that could skew the results. On day 1, we won our best of 9 going 5-1. So I am calling day 1 an overwhelming success, but just like with previous experiments, success on day 1 does not necessarily mean success on following days. On to day 2. I went into day 2 imagining that things were not going to go as well as they had on day 1. I stuck with my same idea of doing a 20-minute warm-up of just hitting the ball around and going for whatever I wanted to, with one small adjustment. If there was anything that I would be able to say did not feel great on day 1, it would be my ability to shoot. It seemed like a lot of times if the net was open and I just needed a well-placed shot to be able to score, I would end up shooting the ball wide or putting it too close to the defender. In order to rectify this issue, I spent 5 minutes of my warm-up time just taking shots from different angles, trying to make sure that my shooting was as good as it needed to be. With the 20-minute warm-up out of the way, it was time to see if day 1 was a fluke, or if there was something more to this idea than one might anticipate. The ranked session on day 2 felt very similar to day 1 in terms of our level of play. We were going for the ball quickly, we had very few moments of hesitation, and we were reading the game well. And our high level of play was showing in our ranked results. Although many games would be closer on day 2, after a 1-1 start, game after game went in our favor, and we were making many confident plays throughout them. That is one thing that I can definitely say feels different since training with the fastball began, even though it has only been 2 days. I feel much more confident in my own abilities, and that confidence has allowed me to be more threatening on the field. The only thing that we will have to make sure does not happen throughout the rest of the week is we cannot allow this confidence to become us trying to do too much, or us trying to be too fancy, as that will very quickly cause our downfall. After another incredible 5-1 day in ranked, we were sitting at 10-2 in games overall, and the addition of the shooting practice in my warm-up seemed to fix that issue as well. So going into day 3, we will not be making any adjustments to the warm-up, and we will see just how long keeping it simple can propel us upwards. When initially starting out on day 3, I was concerned that things were not going to go well due to me being more tired than I would normally be when playing. Then I thought to myself, what better test for a way to train in Rocket League than to see if it can help me play well even if I am not feeling the best outside of the game. Just like the previous days, day 3 started with our 20-minute warm-up, with 5 of those minutes being dedicated to warming up our shooting, then into ranked. Just like the previous day, today had us going back and forth out the gate with 1 win and 1 loss. It looked like we were going to turn it into a 2-1 record after a fast start in game 3, but then things went horrifically wrong. So wrong that I would rather just show you the cataclysmic events that occurred. For the first time in this challenge, we had lost 2 games. And not just 2 games in general, 2 games in a row. In the past, this would be the point where I would have a thought in the back of my head saying that everything is about to come crashing down. But in this instance, I trusted that I was giving myself the best chance to win these games. And I reminded myself that the most important thing for me to do was to play with confidence and without hesitation. With that reminder, a run of wins began, taking us from our 1-2 record all the way to the end of the day at 5-2. Another day where we had won 4 games in a row, and felt very confident doing it. I keep waiting for the day that everything crashes and burns, and we come back to Earth in this challenge. But so far, that hasn't shown any signs of happening. Will this challenge ever trend in the opposite direction? Only time will tell. As we enter day 4, we are moving through the halfway point of this challenge. For day 4, I made one slight change to the warm-up. I still warmed up for 20 minutes and used a number of those minutes to refine our shooting ability, but then the final 5 minutes, I created a new private match where I set the speed of the ball to super fast. This meant that I had to make reads even faster, and I could feel I was actually pushing myself. For our in-between games today, we are going to drop the speed of the ball back to fast, just so we are not going too crazy in our minute or 2 away from the normal ball. With the warm-up out of the way, into ranked we went. This day started out worse than any other. And by worse, I mean that instead of going back and forth with wins and losses starting on a win, we started on a loss, losing our first game of the session for the first time in this entire challenge. We then proceeded alternating wins and losses all the way to a 2-2 record. Again, Through this back and forth, our level of play was quite high, and it felt like there were just some bounces that didn't really go our way. Then Game 5 happened. Much like the previous days, our level of play finally started to consistently break through our opponents. Another 4-game win streak on the day landed us with a final record of 5-2 yet again. This is 4 days in a row where we have not even come close to having a losing record. An overall challenge record of 20-6 is absolutely ridiculous, to the point that I don't even have words to describe it. This is the most consistent I have been in Rocket League in recent memory, and the only thing that I changed was how I was warming up. The only thing that I think needs to change going into day 5 is switching over to the super fast ball and then switching back earlier in the warm-up. That way there is not as big of a difference between the training ball and the normal ball when we hop into ranked. So for tomorrow, we will start with 5 minutes of the super fast ball, and then transition to just the fast ball for the final 15 minutes. We continue to wait for this challenge to take a turn in a different direction, but for that we will have to wait at least one more day. I don't really have many words for day 5, other than it was an absolute nightmare. We warmed up exactly as we said we would. 5 minutes with the super fast ball, and then 15 with the fast. After the warm-up, I felt quite good, but when we hopped into ranked, things just felt weird. The offense still felt like it was working really well, but the defense was consistently lacking. So much so that even though we were able to score 6 goals in the first game, we still came out on the losing end. This ended up being a trend throughout the entire session. We just were not as sharp on defense as we needed to be successful. This resulted in us losing 4 games in a row to start the day, and most of them were not even close. In Game 5, we were finally able to bounce back and get at least one win, but one game later, the day was over with a 1-5 record. A huge drop-off in performance to be sure, but also a reminder of a very important lesson. Everyone is going to have a really bad day here and there where things just don't go your way. As we have seen in the first 4 days of this challenge, warming up in this way has done a fantastic job to get me ready to play. A bad day at least once throughout a week is to be expected. And even with this poor result, our overall record for the week is still sitting at 21-11. So we will look to bounce back tomorrow and get this challenge back on track. Going into day 6, I wanted to return to a simpler time from earlier in the challenge. Just 20 minutes straight with the fast ball, with a few of those minutes dedicated to shooting as always. And it seemed to work pretty well. Ranked today felt much more solid than it had yesterday, at least at the beginning. Despite losing the first game of the day, we bounced back and plowed through most of the day to a 4-2 record. Then it felt like I hit a wall. Being 4-2, you would think it would be pretty easy to finish out the day with a winning record, seeing as how I had 3 chances to do so. But it was not to be. In each of the next 3 games, things were not even close. It is hard to say what exactly went wrong, but it can be really difficult to stay locked in when things go so poorly all of a sudden. And it showed in my play, losing the last 3 games in the day to finish with a 4-5 record. Still significantly better than yesterday, but it really should have been a positive result. This is where we're going to learn another very important lesson, this time about tilt queuing. Both of the last 2 days have gone pretty bad, all things considered. And if I wasn't doing this challenge, almost every part of me would have been telling me to queue again to try to get back the MMR we have lost. But because of holding myself to only a best of 9, I ensured that a bad day did not go from bad to worse. and this would be really beneficial to my mental state going into the next day. Going into the final day of this challenge, we found ourselves with a record of 25 and 16. So regardless of what happens tomorrow, this challenge has already been a massive success. But it would be amazing to end this challenge on a high note. Just like day 6, we are keeping things very simple with the warm-up. 20 minutes with just the fastball. I have made a slight adjustment to the shooting practice though. The drill we will be doing today is something I like to call lightning shooting. The way it works is by hitting the ball as hard as possible from the center circle into the backboard, then following it up to put a shot on net after it bounces off the backboard. This helps to train attacking the ball for shots at full speed, and this is how we concluded our warm-up for the day. Going into ranked, it was hard to know what to expect, but game 1 started off very well. It felt like we were nice and warm and ready to take on the day, and it felt like we were going to be able to carry this momentum into future games. Then came games 2 and 3. Game 2 saw us constantly falling behind by 2 goals, then catching back up just to fall behind by 2 goals again. The goals that we were conceding were also not great, so an unfortunate loss in game 2. We came out in game 3 and it seemed like we were going to be back on track, building up a 4-1 lead, just for us to throw that lead away and lose the game in overtime. Now sitting at 1 and 2, we took a moment to refresh our mindset before hopping into the next game. It felt like I was playing fast, but perhaps I was actually playing too fast. So the goal for the remaining games was to try to slow down and actually read what was happening in the play. The results speak for themselves. After a nervy start to the day, we got into the swing of things and finished out the day going 4 and 1. Bringing our record for the day to 5 and 3, allowing us to finish out this challenge with a positive result, an overall record of 30 and 19, and a comfortable seat in GC2 right at the end of the season. So, was this challenge worth it? I think you can answer that question based on the results. The really good thing about training this way is that there is not a drastic difference when you go into ranked. Take an idea like slow-mo training that we mentioned at the beginning of the video. When you go into ranked after training in slow motion, the game almost feels like it's being fast-forwarded, and it is incredibly difficult to adjust to, at least for me. With this training, there is only a minor difference. But if you focus on attacking the ball as fast as you can, that small increase in speed on the ball will help you read bounces just a little bit faster. And in a game of inches such as Rocket League, a tiny edge is all you need. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button right down below so you make sure you don't miss any future Rocket League content. Additionally, if you'd like to be more involved in this community, please consider joining my Discord link down in the description. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. See you later, guys.